Hello everyone, Friedemann Findeisen from Holistic Songwriting. Jesus, with the mumbling. I already fucked it up, didn't I? I should just restart, but I can't because it's live. That sucks. And we're off. Where's there no video? Hello? What's up with the video? There should be a video. Oh, this is like the worst episode ever. What's going on? Do it. Just play the video. It's not playing the video. All right. Well, this is certainly going great. How's it going, you guys? Oh, man. Already, yeah, for shame. Yeah, so it took me a day longer than planned, but the Patreon account is finally here, and you can access it now through the description below this video. And it's actually replacing, let me just do that, a little bit too much headroom there. I'm still super busy, or I was busy all day recording new videos, so don't mind the back. It's a mess. I understand. It's been a crazy day. It's been a crazy weekend. And yesterday I was supposed to be back at 6 to do the live Q&A, and I couldn't make it. I'm sorry, you guys. There's a good reason for it, and that is that I've been talking to some publishers about some of my games, and it looks like they might actually, have a good shot. So that was very exciting. It took way longer than I expected. We've been driving for 6 hours yesterday. It was pretty crazy, but some really good progress there. And one of my newest prototypes got some really good feedback from the guys, and they said it was really pure innovation, which obviously makes me very proud. So that was a blast. And I thought, since I did the whole shame thing last week, and I said, like, you can shame me publicly next week if I don't have the Patreon online, then I decided to do it Tuesday because I'm a pussy. That is basically the whole reasoning behind it. No, the real reason was really that when I arrived here yesterday, it was so late that it didn't really make sense to do another live Q&A. And I was super, super tired. It was really, it's exhausting when you're super nervous, So that was super fun. And now we're doing this live Q&A thing. It might be one of the last live Q&As here on this channel that is going to be public to everyone, since in the future, this kind of stuff is going to be patrons only, I guess, which is exciting. So if you just joined us now, which is such a TV phrase to say, but it's cool, you can just go into the description and check out the link there. It's the third link, I think. Get feedback for your songs and ask me anything. So it's, I'm super excited about the new Patreon account. Was a lot more work than I thought still. But basically the whole idea is now you can ask me any sort of question. Basically what this is right now. This is just going to be exclusive to patrons. And even better, and this is where really the Patreon thing really comes in, is you can send me songs and I will critique them in a live format. And that's all going to be exclusive just to Patreon. So that stuff is really exciting to me because I used to do that as a personalized service, as a one-on-one kind of thing, but it was $70, and not a lot of people can afford $70. But this new feature is, at the moment, I don't know if it's, so I'm just saying at the moment because I don't know if the price is going to change ever. Maybe it's going to go down, maybe it's going to go up. I have no idea. It's going to start at $11 a month, which I think is very affordable. So and since there's no patrons on the account yet, like, you'd be the first if you start subscribing now. You would be pretty much guaranteed to have your song reviewed every single week. Like, if we have 5 patrons, then it's pretty likely that your song is going to get reviewed. So that's something that I think is really cool about that whole thing. Obviously, there's going to be the whole community aspect. I just created a Discord channel, as someone suggested here last week or 2 weeks ago, I forgot. So that's exciting. I still haven't completely grokked how it works because I'm silly, I'm stupid, and I'm not really a gamer, so Discord is just like, I don't really know. And I went online and looked for a tutorial, and like the first comment was, why would you need a tutorial anyways? Any idiot would understand this. And I'm like just sinking lower and lower on my chair thinking, I must be such an idiot because I really don't understand exactly what I can do with this thing. I think, it should work now, and you even get like a special role assigned, or it's called roles, right? Something like that, or I forgot what it's called. But anyways, if you become a subscriber on Patreon, so if you become a patron, might as well practice saying that. You also get like assigned a special role in Discord that is equal to whatever tier you selected. All right, so how's it going, you guys? Before we get into it, to the live Q&A, I want to quickly talk about a subject that's been going through my mind this week, and that is so. Yesterday on the ride there to the publishers, I've been talking a lot with the guy that I went there with about. You get what I'm saying? Like I was driven there by someone, and I was talking to him about this subject, and I think it's a really important one that I think we should address. And so you know about this phrase that I guess it's a saying, or I don't know whatever it is. It's a fortune cookie line that goes, "In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king," or something like that, or "In the realm of the blind." I forgot. Whatever it is. The same thing I think goes for givers and takers. So yesterday we were talking like, it's this one of those usual everything goes to shit kind of talks, and I think so. While I think the internet is an amazing place and there's a lot of great things that come from personalization through Facebook and Netflix and Amazon and Spotify, and what I mean by that is like the algorithms are so tailored to us that really it makes us feel as if the whole world or that whole platform revolves just around us. It's tailored to us. It's personalized just for us, right? We just get the music or just the feeds or just the ads that we really want to see. So if I'm interested in, board games, I'm just going to get board game ads or whatever. And I'm not going to get, adverts for unicorns or whatever, something like that. And that's a great thing because it means I only get stuff that I'm actually interested in. But it's also a bad thing, or it can be a bad thing, if it just manifests you in your ways, in your way of thinking, and you're never challenged to think outside of the box, right? Or never outside of your comfort zone. So, and that is, I think, why when two opposing parties these days meet each other, and the recent example would be like a Trump supporter and say an Obama supporter. I'm not going to say Hillary supporter because I think we all know that that's not really a thing. If those two meet each other, then both of those have been living in their own bubbles that was created by these individualized platforms. And so, a big fight breaks out because we have these two extremes that only are fed with their own kind of worldview over and over again. And, politics is just an example. There's a lot of other ways in which you could see this. Religion would be another, or even tastes in music, or anything really, board games, anything, your hobby, anything. So that is, I think, a little bit of the trouble that comes with this personalization. And another thing that comes with it, which I think is something that's affecting us as a whole, as a generation, is that we're getting used to being served exactly what we want. And so we're becoming spoiled a little bit as a generation, I remember that when I was a kid, I really had to fight if I wanted to get something that I want. Like, if I wanted to see an interview with Bryan Adams, who was my favorite artist back then, I'd have to stay up till like 10 o'clock at night, and like we'd watch this one thing on the on television, and it was like I was called the Top of the Pops here in Germany. That was like some music show or whatever, and there was like a short interview with him, and it was like 5 minutes, and it made my entire week, right? That was really crazy. And today I can just go online, and within 15 seconds I can watch any interview that I ever want to see about Bryan Adams or with Bryan Adams. So I think where it's going is that we're all becoming takers. We're all getting so used to being served that we have established this sense of, oh, I earned this. This is made for me. The whole world revolves around me. We have a sense of, all these things. Yeah, really. I'm looking for the English word here. But the idea that everything is made for us, that the world revolves around us, right? So what we end up doing is we end up leaning back, enjoying ourselves. We sit in front of Netflix, and not saying anything against Netflix here. We watch Netflix every evening almost. But there's a lot of people who don't do anything but, that sit in front of Netflix all day, that, click through YouTube stuff all day, and that are just consuming and do nothing but every single day. And even if they're going to work, a lot of these people aren't really creating anything. They're only consuming stuff. And so we're really moving from a generation of, I wouldn't say that we ever really had a generation of creators, but it's certainly moving more towards the users, the consumers now, because so much we have so much access to the stuff that is being created, that consuming just becomes so easy. And so that's something that fundamentally has changed, I think. And what I think this leads to is, and this is the whole point of this argument that I want to make here is, I was talking about this saying at the beginning, in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I think in the kingdom of the takers, in the kingdom of consumers, the creator is king. And so if you, as a musician, as an artist, as a person, can create stuff on a regular basis, make people's lives better in any shape or form, whether that's through YouTube videos or through holistic songwriting in my case, or by writing music, or by painting pictures, or by writing a novel. If you can make someone's life, or by being a surgeon actually doing some real good, let's be honest here, but if you can create something that is actually going to help people, or do something that is really going to influence people's lives in a positive way, if you can create value for people, that is really something that is rare. And I think ultimately everyone is going to flock to those people. So become a leader. That's what, start a tribe is what Seth Godin would say. Begin a movement yourself. You decide what you want to put out there and do that regularly. So that's kind of the first big lesson that I want to instill in you guys is it's extremely important. I think, or it's such an opportunity when everyone else is getting more and more comfortable, that if you yourself can become proactive and start taking action and be creating stuff for others, that is a huge opportunity. And I think there is no better time to start than right now to create some stuff and put it out there. And if you want, you have my permission to stop this live Q&A right now and start creating some music right now. Another thing that I want to talk about that has to do with this, so I guess you could continue watching for at least 5 more minutes. Another thing that really is tied to this is this idea of, how do I spend my time every single day? So this is a big question that I sometimes get. It's a big question. It's the most important question is, what should I spend my time on? I have a limited amount of hours every day. Maybe you're working a second job, or maybe music is really just your hobby and you have like a couple of hours every day, or maybe just a couple of minutes. What should you spend that time on? What should you spend that precious time on? I think as artists, as creators, your time should go into creating stuff. And that means writing songs, doing blog posts, publishing YouTube videos, publishing blogs on your website, having a great website, doing stuff that people can actually see. And everyone at this point is going to go, yeah, of course. Why would anyone do anything but? But the truth is, and I see this every single day, every time I talk to students that are not really getting along, that are not really getting further in their careers, that is their number one issue. They're not really putting stuff out there. If you're really honest with yourself, are you really putting stuff out there? Or are you actually just thinking you're putting stuff out there? When was the last time you released a single? How many weeks, months ago was that? When was the last time you really cared for a release and you really put some marketing into it and you figured out some ways to get more fans for your project? When was the last time you really put yourself out there? And how many times a week are you doing that? And I'm not saying you should release a song every single week, but work on releasing something, having something that you can show people. Because stuff like planning your day, planning your week, planning your month, all of that might be great, but it's completely worthless if the things that you are planning are not actual stuff that you're releasing, So I think it's much easier as an artist to just say, you know what? I'm just going to create great stuff. What am I going to create today? I'm going to wake up today, and my first question is going to be, what one thing am I going to create today? What am I going to put out into the world? And if I can't finish it today, that's fine. I'm going to work on something. Maybe it's going to take me a week before it actually releases, but I'm going to only work on this thing today that's going to release next week. But it's going to be out there for people to see. It's going to be a testament that I'm actually an artist, that I'm actually a creator, and not just some guy who thinks that they are a creator, who occasionally writes a song, who occasionally publishes a Facebook post or YouTube video. So, as you can tell, this is a problem that I'm very outspoken about, because it's something that I see so often. So many people think that they're really creating and they're creators. And maybe they are, but how much of what they're creating can you actually see as a consumer? Your number one job is creating stuff for people. Your number one job is getting it out there, making sure that people see it. That's your two things. And so all that you should be spending your time with is one of two things. Either create stuff that is amazing. Obviously, it has to be amazing. Create great stuff. That's the surest way to turn viral, or to get shares or whatever, or to start a lasting connection, lasting relationship with a fan. So create stuff. Secondly, make sure more people see that stuff. It's those two things. You don't have to do anything else, literally. That's all you have to do. And that kind of concludes my little talk here. But I think that this is so important. I kind of want to repeat this one more time. So the first thing I said was, in the kingdom of takers, or in the kingdom of consumers, the creator is king. And secondly, start putting stuff out there. It's not enough to create stuff. People actually have to see it. It's two things that you should be spending your time on: creating stuff and making sure people see that stuff. All right. Now I'm going to move into the live Q&A. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Hopefully this was informative. It's just been something that I've been thinking about like all night, and I think it's important. I think we should talk about this. All right. Owen says, what are the best ways to meet people in the music industry in person? Conventions are great, and meeting people through a friend. You could start doing internships at places. Those are the three that I know of that work. You could, I tried doing stuff like going to public events where they had like a talk or gave interviews, and sometimes you can shake their hand afterwards and introduce yourself, but I've not really found that is a very good conductor into a relationship between you two. It's usually just, you get to know them, you shake hands, take a selfie. It's a take a selfie kind of moment, It's like, oh, cool, we're best friends for a second, and then it's usually over. Because what's on their mind is, I just gave this talk, and here's my fans. And whatever you do, it's almost impossible to rise above that level of being perceived as a fan. So really what works is start an internship somewhere, preferably a studio, and preferably a studio that's any good. And if they don't take you, then think about whether they didn't take you. Maybe you have to get better as a producer, or start an internship with a songwriter and offer your free service, And it's not always going to be easy. Like, there's going to be some songwriters who say, I don't have enough work. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's going to be interesting for you to stick around, or, people who have never worked with anyone else before. That's possible. And I've seen all that happen before. Sometimes you can say like, that's fine. I just want to watch. I'm just there to learn. I can help you as much as you want, but you're not going to notice me if you don't want to notice me. I'm just going to try to learn. And you don't have to pay me, etc. And sometimes that can lead to some great things. Best case scenario is really starting work at a studio, or at a label, or these places where you have a lot of traffic, a lot of people coming through. That's what a friend of mine did, and she now has signed a contract with a publisher, and it's really looking good for her. So she's really on her best way to becoming full-blown professional songwriter, and that's all she does. So that's one way. Conventions also great. Go to all conventions that you can. Actually going places and meeting people in person. So it's good that you asked that. That it's important to meet people in person. Email and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, and Twitter doesn't really make sense. So it's almost, you can almost forget about those. Sometimes it's good to introduce yourself first. Write an email and say like, hey, I would love to meet you there. I'll be there. We can meet, and I would love to show you some music of mine or whatever. If that's all fine. Like but make it about the private, the personal interaction. Like meet people face to face. You can, as I said, tell them early on that you're going to meet them, and sometimes you have to actually set up a meeting. But make sure that you meet them face to face and not just like in some chat room. Kai says, I've been reading Malcolm Gladwell's book about the advantages of being an underdog. So that's Outliers, is it? What do you think are the advantages of being an underdog in the music industry? Is that a new book by Malcolm Gladwell? Which one is that? Malcolm. Is that his new book? Gladwell. Underdog. Oh, David and Goliath. Right, that's his new book, right? From 2013. I don't think I've read that one, actually. I think I read 3 or 4 books of his. There was one with, there was Outliers, Good to Great. There was the other one, which I forgot what it's called. That was the prequel to Good to Great. And there's one about how ideas spread. I forgot what that one's called. But I haven't read this one. What do you think are the advantages of being an underdog in the music industry? Well, it's easier to make a splash. If no one expects anything from you, it can be easier to surprise people. If you are a big act, sometimes it's difficult to really do anything that is gonna surprise, excite people. Best example for me right now is probably Eminem, who just released a new album, which is not even that bad. You know, listening to the lyrics, I'm like, I mean, he's really working hard on this. You know, he's giving it his all. You know, and you can really tell, and he's worked very hard on it. It's very, very clear when you listen to the album, I think. But the internet is still tearing him apart for it. You know, and it seems that there's almost nothing he could do at this point to really redeem himself, which is a shame. So, you know, having all that fame and having all that money, there was Machine Gun Kelly did this kind of diss about his new album, which I think is amazing. Like I'm really a big fan of Machine Gun Kelly, but Inity says something like, "Isn't your act kind of getting old? You're super rich and you're still not happy." It's that kind of thing. And that's the thing, right? He's so big now that nothing he can do could ever really sound like those first 3 albums. It's not possible. He's just a completely different person. And whenever he tries to do something like his older stuff, people say, like, isn't this act getting kind of old? Whenever he tries to do something new, like do collabs with Ed Sheeran, which I really hate that kind of stuff. I'm really not a big fan of all the pop star. But at least he's trying to do something new in that regard. You know, he's trying to do something that is more at his success or fame level, so to say. And he's kind of stuck in that, you know. To me, he'll always be the underground artist. That's always where I thought he was the most interesting. And the second he became a multimillionaire, that all changed, and now he's not interesting anymore. So being super small can sometimes lead to the feeling of like, wow, I discovered this guy. No one knows about this band. You know, I have some bands that I'm really excited about. Every time they release a new album, I still buy that album, you know, and I don't buy albums generally anymore. But if those small bands that have like maybe in the whole world, they maybe have like 1,500 fans, if they release an album, I'm going to buy that album because I'm super excited about what they put out. And a big part of that is that I'm so excited about, like, I have found this band. This is my underdog band. No one knows about this. This is my personal little thing. And so I think that can be something that can be quite conductive for a good fan relationship, at least in the beginning. What else? Being an underdog. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things do get easier when you're bigger. That's for sure. Another thing is that if you're really, really big, it's definitely harder to sell records for some reason. It's easier to sell merch, but it's harder to sell records because, and they still sell CDs. That's still a business there. And I think a big reason for that is that they're playing small venues, and at the end of the concert, almost everyone buys a CD because it's a personal experience that they just shared with this artist. Working with these 2 guys that are just playing on the streets, and they just reached their milestone of, check this, selling 10,000 CDs in the streets just by playing live. Just, you know, wandering through the streets, playing songs on guitar and singing to that. They just sold their 10,000th CD. Absolutely incredible. And it's still possible because it's such a personal thing. Now, if these 2 guys were, if Beyonce were to go down the street, everyone would flock around that and they might buy some merchandise, but they wouldn't buy the album necessarily because it's like, I can download that. I can listen to that on Spotify. It's everywhere anyways. Whereas with those smaller bands, we feel like we can contribute more if we support those acts. And so it's not a if you look at this success graph and success against money, like against how much money you make, at some point you like reach a sort of plateau, because even if you get more successful, then actually that can reverse itself when people start buying less of you because they feel like you already have all this money, that you don't need their money as well. So, all right, that was a very long answer, but we don't have that many questions today, do we? So that's fine. All right. Martin says, am I right that I have to be at least $4 tier to join the weekly live Q&A? Yes, that's right. So that's how it is, unfortunately. But I think it's $4 a month for 4 live Q&As every month. I think that's fine, right? So it's like $1 per live Q&A. Is that all right? Hope it is. If not, let me know. I mean, I can still change that stuff. I think $4 is fine though, right? For 4 hours of work, for 4 hours of live Q&As. Mike says, first to sign up, did $11. Happy to hear that, man. I do producer, but $39 for 1 Skype a year is not the best deal. I agree, but from now on, this is going to be the only way to contact me through Skype. Maybe an hour every 3 months. I know you want to limit it, but that's a $336 Skype session if once a year. Yeah, so I've been going through the numbers on this one, and I really want to limit so I'm really going to stop with the Skype sessions altogether, and this is going to be the only way to really talk to me, like personally via Skype in the future. And so I might actually do it every half year, maybe. I'm not sure. That's actually something I have to consider. Maybe I think you have a good point. All right. Well, I have to think about that some more. Maybe you're right. Every 3 months would be for 50 people. That could be a lot of Skype sessions. I have to really think that over. I have to see if I can do that time-wise. We'll see. Maybe I'm just going to lower the dollar amount for the 3rd tier. All right, the 4th tier, that is. Mike says, finishing is the hardest. Got a mental block in this area. It seems I got to get over. Got 5 times 80 to 90% done songs. Yeah, it's something we all struggle with. And it's such a funny thing. We all think we're musicians, but if we look at it at the end of the year, what did we do last year? Really looking at it from the outside, not from our perspective. I know we worked hard, but did we really put out stuff? Did we put out stuff? Did we create as a creator? So I totally feel you. And as I said, I see this all the time. You're not alone with this. It's really a mindset thing. You have to remind yourself constantly, like, yes, what am I going to release today? Doesn't matter what I work on. I have to release something today. And everything else really isn't that important. All right. Martin says, very cool opening statement again. Very encouraging for real. Glad to hear it, man. Yeah, that's something I want to do a little bit more of in the future, to kind of introduce these live Q&As. And that's something I'm going to do on Patreon as well, to drive the whole thing with like a theme for the week. And if you guys have any questions about that theme, I'd love to talk about that some more. So we have a little bit more to talk about than just the questions. Anderson IV says, I don't have Wi-Fi right now, so I'll rewatch this later. When will be the live feedback Q&As? I just signed up for the Patreon feedback. So right now I'm thinking to do those on Saturdays at 6 my time. So that would be 9 a.m. in LA, or 12 like at noon on the East Coast. So PST, 9 a.m. PST on Saturdays from now on. And if you guys hate that, we can still totally change that. We can change it back to Monday. But I did a survey a couple of months ago asking people when would be the best time to do these live Q&As, and pretty much everyone really loved Saturdays. So that's where it's probably going to go. All right. Martin says, Kamikaze is so much better than Revival. I actually really agree. I really thought Eminem did a really great job on Revival in terms of I think he's still got it. He still is the rap god. He still has got all the skills that he needs to be a great rapper. I think his image has really suffered, especially from doing those collabs with those popular artists. And the productions on Revival were really horrendous. That was really bad. And I think they're not great on Kamikaze either. I just think, he wrote something on Twitter, I think, along the lines of, I tried not to overthink this one. And I think it shows. Like, just doing whatever he thinks is right at the moment and not, like, rewriting his stuff too much, I think has left some of the edges in there that were so desperately needed. And I think you can really tell. So that's a great thing. And I'm definitely a bigger fan of Kamikaze than Revival. But at the same time, I'm not sure, but I don't think we're ever gonna get another Marshall Mathers EP or an Eminem show even, or so we'll see. Also, what else did I want to say? There was one more thing. Oh yeah, if you haven't seen that Machine Gun Kelly song, it's called Rap Devil. I suggest you watch it. I think it's pretty cool. Anderson says, never mind, I found a computer at uni. Lol. Great. So the first one is this Saturday. I guess so. Yep. Why don't we set that in stone right now? Can I do this Saturday? Yes, I think that should work out. Yeah, cool. Let's do that. So it's 6 p.m. Let's do those. I'm actually just going to put that in my calendar right now. Live Q&As. And let's put that as once a week. Every week on Saturday at 6 p.m. There we go. All right. That's how it's going to be. All right. It's in my calendar now, guys. So it's official. All right. Just deleting Mondays now. Cool. All right. Exciting. Yaroslav says, do you know any good examples of a perfect record, songwriting-wise, but horrible at production and vice versa? Ooh. That's a great question. I mean, there's some subpar productions for sure. I always thought that Black Eyed Peas had some really bad productions that were, I think the songs were essentially really well written. I mean, that's why they're so popular. They're super catchy. Like, I Got a Feeling is a really good song. Great melodies. A lot of things were done right, but the production is not up to par. If you compare it to other pop songs during that period of time, it really didn't hold up. Again, I would really argue that Revival by Eminem was badly produced, but had some good writing on it. There were some, in terms of the lyrics, I think, had some really good moments. And in terms of like his rap skills and stuff like that, and in terms of flow, it had some big issues in terms of the music and the melodies, though. Again, I didn't really like the juxtaposition of Eminem's like kind of aggressive kind of raps mixed with Ed Sheeran doing some. That was just wrong for me. It just really didn't feel right. Some more songs that I can think of would be "Take Me to Church" by Hozier. Had a really like rough kind of indie production. I actually like the sound of it, but it's definitely compared to anything else that was on the radio then, it was really rough, rough. Sounding like a dog here. But you get what I'm saying. I think the whole production was just this really rumbly kind of sound, not really that a lot of depth to it, these very imperfect kind of sounds, kind of sounded like first take kind of recordings. So, but great song, but in terms of, I mean, the songwriting is also not perfect, I would argue, with that song. I like the song a lot. There are some issues that I have with it personally, but I think it's still a great song, and I can definitely understand why it was such a success, but the production of it really wasn't that good. It was fitting, I would say that much, and maybe then that makes it a great production. But even then, I think you could have done more with that production still. Another example, and now the only things that I can really think of are examples of artists that are great songwriters that don't have like that polished pop kind of sound, like Bon Iver or James Blake. But in those cases, I think that sound is really what makes them. That's really their identity, and like that's a mic that's usually used for drums or snare drums, essentially, guitars maybe, especially electric guitars. It was used in, like, the president used it for his speeches, but it's not usually considered a vocal mic. The reason for that is it's not just a very brilliant mic. It's a very mid-heavy mic, but there's no highs in it, and it's got a lot of low end. It's a dynamic microphone, so it's got that proximity effect going for it as well, or going against it rather. So, but recording an entire album, and For Emma Forever Ago was recorded that way with just this one microphone, creates a very, very dark, warm sound because there's just no highs to the signal. But the cool thing is that he took that and made it the identity of the record. And I think I read in some interviews that Justin Vernon actually, when he showed this to labels, that he was actually interested in re-recording that record, and the label said no, we're going to leave it just like it is, and which I think is a beautiful story, because usually a lot of labels are only interested in making the sound perfect. I think this is a beautiful example of the label understanding that the sound is the story and leaving it there, because the story is that after a bad breakup and breaking up with his band, as far as I understand, he went to this cabin in the woods and recorded this, sort of like he really retrieved himself, like removed himself from society for a while, had a sort of man in the woods kind of man on the mountain kind of epiphany, and started writing this record in kind of a depression, and came back. And it's beautiful that, to me, that the label understood that, and that the record company understood that that's the story. The story is not the songs necessarily, but it's everything. It's the entire package. And so that entire record is really just an SM57. It was all considered just as a demo record, really. But it's, so, as I said, it's not that production could have been better in the objective sense, in that it could have been performed better, it could have been recorded better, it could have been mixed better and produced better and everything. But the whole magic probably comes from the fact that it wasn't. So there you go. Martin says, I'm not so sure about the $4. $4 a month is close to the limit in my head. As a musician and student, I have to watch out for my expenses. I have to think about it. Don't take it personal. Yeah, all right. Well, it's kind of like I saw it kind of like as a tip, you know? Just like $1 for an hour would be nice, I thought. I understand that $4 a month, it's $4 though, it's not €4, Martin. So it's like, what is it, like €3? Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, man. I mean, that's what I was afraid of a little bit by switching to Patreon. I mean, making this small. I mean, it's a small contribution for sure, but it's still a paid service. So, yeah, I understand if that's not something you want to do. Like, I mean, we'll see how this is going to go. And if after a couple months we still only have 3 or 4 patrons, then we might as well stop with it anyways, and I'm going to come back to you guys and do this publicly anyways. But something that's really going to be, that I'm going to do for sure, that's only going to be patrons only, is going to be the feedback stuff, where I'm going to review your songs and do some exclusive videos and stuff like that. So that's something I'm really excited for. And even if you just pay $1, here's the good bit. Even if you just pay $1 a month, you can still watch all of the live Q&As after the fact. You just can't ask questions during the live Q&A. Our ARCCT 550 says, nice to hear you open up a Discord server. One question though, is it going to be a Patreon only thing or available for all? That's actually something I was going to ask you guys. What do you think? Should it be for everyone or just for patrons? I was thinking probably for all. The patrons are going to get another role assigned to them so that you can see that they're patrons, but probably open for all would be the most interesting. What do you think? Just opening up the community as much as possible, I think sounds right, but I don't know. How do you see that? Anderson says, interesting, Bon Iver used a lot of falsetto too. Doesn't that mid-tone focused microphone conflict with the high-pitched falsetto? Well, no. That's something that's kind of tricky to wrap your head around with frequencies sometimes. Mid-based doesn't mean... So if you're singing in a high voice, that doesn't mean... That's still like way below where the cutoff happens with microphones usually. I mean, that microphone like has a slow roll off around, I don't know, probably something like 3 or 4K or something like that. And even if you sing in falsetto and even if you sing your highest note, it's still gonna be like what, something like 800, 900 hertz. I might be completely wrong with that, but like I don't think you can sing high enough really for that to drop out, so to say. Does that make sense? So what it's really just doing is it's taking off the highs of the falsetto. So it can be completely, everything can be, you can sing really high notes. It's not going to take out the highness of the note. It's just going to take the high frequency content of the note. So it's going to take off the air that comes with a falsetto, or it's going to take off the brightness of it. So it's going to sound warmer, but it's still going to be completely high. So it doesn't really, the pitch, you would have to sing as high as, like, you'd have to really be singing very, very high in order for that to make a real difference. All right. Yaroslav says, you made me change my mindset from lyrics are not important at all to lyrics are important just as much as everything else. Yeah, I think lyrics are very important. I'm not the greatest lyricist myself, and if it counts, if I need some good lyrics, I'll usually hire someone else or work with someone else rather. But yes, they're important. It doesn't have to mean that they have to be complicated. And typically what happens when people say like, oh, I want to write some great lyrics, is they have this artist in their head and they want to write lyrics just like them. That's never going to work. Work on finding your own style. And maybe that style is something super simple, you know. If you can't beat them, start your own thing. Have a unique lyrical style. And you don't have to ever worry about being the best in your genre because you're going to be the only one in your genre, right? So there have been artists in the past who created their own language. And then you can really sing anything, honestly. I mean, you have to create your own language first, which is kind of, yeah, you know, it's a little bit of work. But it definitely makes things easier in terms of, it's very difficult to sound cliche if you're singing in your own language, you know what I mean? And you don't have to invent your own language to do that. I mean, rappers kind of do. They have their own language. They use their own slang words, you know. They have their own way of talking and the way they use metaphors or similes and stuff like that. But you don't have to do anything, have to write lyrics like anything that's out there. You can just create your own style of music and maybe just use words in a completely different way than everyone else. Does that make sense? Yaroslav says, however, what does one focus on instrumental compositions in order to still tell a story? I'm not sure if I understand a question. However, what does one focus on instrumental compositions? What does one focus on in instrumental compositions in order to still tell a story? I think it really comes down to the addiction formula, man. I mean, you know, the energy curve is really where it's at. Because that's what we know from screenwriting. There's these established formulas that work in almost all genres, even public speaking, comedy. It all works based on the same principles. And it's that whole 3-act thing, or doesn't even have to be 3 acts, but like the 1, 2, 3 rule kind of runs through it. You have hype and tension. Sometimes implied tension is another way to work with that. That's still a thing, you know. That's still the big pop formula, in my opinion, you know. So that's really what it comes down to, you know. That's the whole musical backbone. If the energy distribution works in your song, that's like 80% of your arrangement right there, you know. Nizara says, what are some tips you can give for actually finishing a track after the thrill wears off and being stuck with an 8-bar loop? What do you do when it starts feeling like work? Man, you get tired of your tracks after 8 bars? That is depressing. That probably means that you're spending way too much time on those 8 bars. So instead of writing just 8 bars and making those perfect, you have to work on lowering your what do you call it? Your threshold of acceptance of quality, or whatever you want to call it. Like you have to be able to write an entire track and saying like, okay, this all doesn't sound just the way I want it yet, but let's lay down the foundation of the track. Let's lay down the arrangement, the songwriting of the track first, and then I can start massaging everything. And you will see that makes things so much more fun. And obviously there's going to come a point at some point, and for me that's usually after like a month or sometimes months of working on a track, where you get tired of whatever you've written. And at that point it does become work, and then you just have to set yourself hours every day and, you know, work through it. The best way to do it is with a deadline, because otherwise you're just going to trail off and it's going to be this endless thing. If you still feel like it's a good song, you just don't love it anymore, set yourself very tight deadlines, but get the thing done. make sure you finish it. But I think the thing that's going to help you the most for sure is, if you're not, that's not your job. Your job is not to write an 8-bar loop. Your job is to write a finished thing. And that's the first thing that you should do. Forget the sounds, forget the sound design, forget, layering different stuff on top of each other. I know we love doing that because that's the fun part. But it's also fun to create a song. It's just as fun. It's just a little bit more difficult because it requires a little bit more creativity and brain power. So get that done first, and then I give you the permission to go back and fiddle with everything and make sure everything sounds perfect. And you realize that is, as I said, just as fun as fiddling in the first place. Okay, this sounds so wrong. Man, what's with the sexual innuendo here? It's just as much fun as going into detail with the sound design right away. And it's much easier to then sound design when you can already see the horizon, when you already know, okay, this is my song, I just have 3.5 minutes of this. If I just, fiddle with this here, now I have to be careful about the end of that sentence. If I just massage this bit, it's also wrong. If I just work on this, it's all wrong right now. If I just focus on the details of this piece of music, man, it's getting more complicated as I go, then it's also going to take care of a lot of other problems in the rest of my song. Like, that's usually how it is, right? We have a couple of layers in our song. If we fix one layer, then the rest of the song, that layer is going to be fine usually as well. And again, like, if you have the whole picture before you start going into detail, it makes things so much easier because you know when you're going to be done, So yeah, that would be my biggest thing. And then set yourself deadlines, dude. That's so important. Make sure you set yourself some deadlines. All right, anyone else got some questions? I'm actually amazed that we have 8 viewers today because at our peak we had 12. It's pretty cool because usually I do these Mondays, and I'm happy that still we have so many people to join us today. But if you have any more questions, let me know. I'm gonna stay here for 3 more minutes or so before I get off. Unless we get a question, then we're all adults here. It's okay. Thanks, Thomas. But otherwise, I still have a bunch of stuff to do today. One of which is to write a letter to a priest because I'm getting married this month, and some precautions have to be taken. So it's gonna get interesting. My girlfriend is Catholic, so it's gonna be, having a church wedding is going to be a little bit tricky because I'm not even baptized. And so that's something we're tackling right now. And it's still a little bit of work. But I'm excited, dude. I'm looking forward to being married to this girl. So, what else? Yeah, still a bunch of stuff to do today. And I'm just really passing time till it's for 2 more minutes. Congratulations. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Yeah, it's going to be good, man. I mean, we've been together for almost 5 years now. Thanks so much, you guys. All right, here we have a question. Thanks. Kai says, I'm still pondering. Hi, Kai, by the way, I forgot to answer your email, I think. You wrote me a really long and considerate personal email. I'm very sorry for not getting back to you. It's just sometimes, last week was just so crazy. And it's just with those long emails, I always want to write back something real, I don't just want to quickly write something back. I want to get into it a little bit. And last time, just the time was lacking for that. Ab unter die Haube. Yeah, there we go. All right. But so this month is just the official wedding. We're not going to get married in church until next year, but it's still something we already have to pre-plan ahead. All right. Kai says, I'm still pondering the importance of memorable themes in film music. I get that modern film music has moved away from this, but I still disagree that a memorable theme isn't always a good thing. Yeah, I think so. I agree. There's still plenty of movies that have great themes. It's just that they're used very differently, whereas in the John Williams days, we had these very obvious kind of themes. Today, like, there's some directors who will straight up say, like, I don't want any themes in my movie. Like, I don't want anything that remotely resembles a melody. You could still write melodies there. Of course, you are going to write melodies anyways, even if they're really stretched out. If you have because you always get melodies. If you just play 4 chords, you have a melody, even if that, because the highest note in all of those chords, that is essentially already a melody. And so if you have a director who doesn't like melodies, you can still do stuff that will kind of be like a melody. A good example for that would be the Inception score, for example, with the bit with the piano, which is just hitting 2 notes on the piano all over the keyboard, basically. That's not really a melody. It's just essentially it's chords, but it's still something that is very easy to remember. It's very memorable as a piece of composition because that sound is very memorable, and it's a nice melody as well. It's still nowhere near anything that John Williams has ever written, like with Indiana Jones or Star Wars or E.T., all scores that kind of sound similar, to be honest. Or E.T. and Star Wars at least sound very similar. I think it's just 1 note difference, isn't it? But yeah, I think it's just 1 note in difference, and it's even the same note. It's just the octaves is the difference. That's funny. Never noticed that. Yeah, anyways. So, yeah, you totally still can use melodies. It's just that usually you'll have to stretch them out more so that they're not as memorable, not as noticeable. That is the word. And typically what directors mean when they say, I don't want any melodies, is that they don't want people to notice that there's music. They want people to feel the music, but not notice that they're listening to music. It's supposed to be more of a sound design thing almost, something to fill the silences, to make the emotions pop on screen, but not for the music to take over. And sometimes they're just really afraid of the music stealing the show because they want people to watch the movie. Which, sometimes it's true, that can happen, especially if you have these really busy melodies. But yeah, so I think that's probably the reason for that. Kai says, it's all good, man. Appreciate you. I know life is overflowing. It is, so what can I say? Thanks, man. Thomas says, where's the honeymoon? I don't know. We haven't really planned one yet, to be honest. And I don't think we are going to plan one. I mean, we're not going to get married in Germany. We're going to get married in Spain. So that is going to be a factor. So that's probably going to be sort of our honeymoon. It's just the wedding is going to be somewhere else, which is already exciting enough. The reason for that is really just that Joanna and I played in cover bands together, and we played so many weddings that we're so sick and tired of German weddings. We just kind of want to do something else, I guess. We're such snowflakes. We always have to be so special. But yeah, no, a big thing of that was that we have friends all over the world, and for me the nicest thing, I don't want our wedding to revolve around us, kind of, because Joanna and I are both kind of not shy people, but we're introverts. We like our peace and quiet, and we like the idea much better to have this party for other people, like have it at a nice place, actually, because we've been to weddings and it sucks to go there. You drive there and then you're in the middle of nowhere, and you're just there for them, and it's just and we want to have a wedding where people come to, and afterward they're like, oh wow, this is so nice here, let's stay here a couple more days. That's something that I would like for my wedding to be like. I don't want it to really revolve around me. I'd like to have a sense of community where everyone can do their own thing, and yeah, because I'm already nervous about the altar, walking down the whatever it's called, because it's not my thing having all eyes on me. So I'd much prefer any great fiction recommendations. Oh man, tons. Yeah, I'm currently totally obsessed with Red Rising, and I'm not a science fiction fan at all. I really never was into science fiction, but Red Rising has changed me. I really like that book series. I just read the first 3. I thought they were real good fun. I mean, it's not great work or anything, but it's just really good fun. What are some other good books that I've read recently that were like fiction? I read a lot of bad ones. I read some German ones. There's this German psycho thriller guy. What's his name again? I forgot, but he's like really famous. He wrote a book called The Package, I think, or something like that. Das Paket. And I'm not a big fan, unfortunately. I think they're the stories don't really make that much sense, I think. They're exciting as you read them, but if you think back about what you just read, you're like, hold on a minute, that didn't make any sense. Why was that? It's just so. But man, the Red Rising books, super super cool. And another book that I really enjoyed, to be honest, was Ready Player One, which took me a really long time to get into because it was like a nerd overload. There's so much pop culture references that I didn't get any of them because I wasn't born. Like I wasn't a kid in the 80s, so many things just flew right by me, and I had no clue about any of those. But like when the story really started, I had a really good time with it. And once I understood that it was like kind of like a nudge and a wink, and it wasn't all taking itself too seriously, that's when I really got into it, and I really had a great time reading it because it's nerd overload, and it's actually quite fun. Obviously, the Game of Thrones book are really the books are really good. I think they're really well written. That's actually what turned me on to the TV series, not the other way around. The books I thought actually were really well written, and that was what made me give the series another 100 pages or 200 pages of the first book were a little bit difficult to get through because I had no idea where it was going. I didn't know anything about it going into it. But once the real story starts, it gets really exciting really quickly, and then it really had me, and I couldn't stop reading until I finished the third book. And they're like thick books. All right. Thomas says, do you have a bachelor's degree in music? Is it necessary for some things, or can you get by without it? Why would I need one? Probably. I have a bachelor's degree. I don't think it's necessary for anything. I've never needed it. I loved my studies though, and I can recommend studying music. If not, just to spend a lot of time on making music and feeling like you're allowed to, not having a second job. I think it's, and just being able to just focus on this one thing. I have done a couple of guest workshops at my old university, so that was maybe something that I only could have done if I don't know if I would have been able to do that if I didn't get my bachelor. I don't know. And maybe it helped by doing, I gave a couple of workshops all around conservatories here in Germany and the Netherlands. Maybe that helped. I don't know. I think it's mostly the YouTube channel, to be honest. I can't really say. So I don't think in music you really need a Bachelor of Music, but the study I think is worth it. If you find the right conservatory or music school to study at, then it's definitely worth it. Yaroslav says, you seem very happy about the wedding. I'm happy for you. I am, and the thing is, I mean, maybe I will be nervous, but right now I'm really, and I have been for the last year, because we got engaged like almost a year ago now, it's been a long time. And there wasn't ever really a moment where the two of us like really rethought it or thought about turning back or saying like, was this the right decision? But the two of us it's just been smooth sailing ever since. And we're both just really happy with it. We're both looking forward to it. And I mean, the whole thing is nothing's going to change, That's how we want it, at least. We hope that nothing's going to change because of that. I mean, I'm going to, I'm not going to unload the washing machine anymore, that's for sure. I mean, that's all her now. But yeah, no, I think we're both on the same side here. I mean, we're both just thinking like, oh yeah, it's going to be a nice party, maybe for some friends and stuff. But at the end of the day, nothing is going to change because of it. Kai says, also curious, where did your fiance's stage name come from? It's from her real name. She's called Joanna Kielbasa, which Kielbasa is Polish for sausage, believe it or not. I know it's not, it's close, but it almost means sausage. And so it's the truncation of that. Joanna Kielbasa becomes Joe Basa. But she's not going to be called Kielbasa much longer, so she might have to change her stage name to Joe Eisen, which is a horrible name. Almost as bad as Friedemann Findeisen. Kai says, I've been meaning to read Red Rising. I'll add that to the top of my list. Awesome, dude. Yeah, let me know how you like it. I'm really a big fan. And it's going to take some time to get through the first couple hundred pages before like the story actually starts, But man, I had a blast reading it. Thomas says, I've heard I have a hard time being motivated to read when I know I should. Any recommendations? I'm in the States, by the way. To read when I know I should. Yeah, start with some smaller books, If I'm like the Seth Godin books, for example, are a lot of fun, I think. Are you talking about fiction or nonfiction? I think for nonfiction, Seth Godin's books are great as a start because they're so simple. They just revolve around one idea, and they're written in a really fun, upbeat kind of way. I'm also a big fan of Tim Ferriss' writing style. His books are definitely thicker, but the writing is so good and so enjoyable and so youthful, for the lack of a better word, that I think they're a lot of fun to read. So those I really like as well. Nonfiction, right? Yeah. So Tim Ferriss's books are great. I'm going to write those names down here in the chat. So that's Seth Godin. The third one, marketing. All marketers are liars, or all marketers are storytellers, is how it was renamed after the first print run didn't do too well with that name. So that's Tim Ferriss. There's also, who's fun? Derek Sivers wrote a book called Anything You Want. Super cool. I have origins from Silesia. I know the trouble with the names and the pronunciation. Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Yeah, it's because she's got like all this. She's got this L with like a little dash through it, which is pronounced W. It's super confusing. Derek Sivers is really fun. Who else? I think those are probably my favorite authors for nonfiction books because they're just a lot of fun to read. Oh, and something that reads, to me at least, I'm really interested in psychology and especially behavioral psychology. So one of my, or probably my favorite book of all time is Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. To me, that is like cocaine. You know, I could get high on that book over and over again. It reads like a thriller. You're not going to finish it. It's not a problem. You're still going to enjoy it. It's a thick book. Just read however far you want to read. It's so fascinating. To me, it's the coolest book out there. If you're interested in like experiments that show how we as a human race tick, how mindsets are established, read that book. I think it's absolutely breathtaking. One of the coolest books I've ever read, for sure. And it's my favorite nonfiction book out there. No question about that. So yeah, anything else? You have a hard time reading in general? So the books, I think, is a big part of it. Like finding a good book that is fun to read and has fun. I think youthful writing style for me is a big deal because there's all these books by older authors that I find tricky to get into. Just if they use like really boring language, I'm already kind of like turned off, and I'm like, should I really finish this? This sounds like someone wrote it who fell asleep while he wrote it. And I'm falling asleep certainly when I read those kind of books. So that's a big one, finding the right books. And secondly is audiobooks, man. It's great. Whenever you're on the road, driving somewhere, get an Audible account. I have one and I'm super happy with it. I think it's actually really worth the money. And getting one free book, I mean, you have to make an account that's like $9 or 10 euros at least here. So you have to pay a little bit for it, but I think it's totally worth it, especially because you can download these really long ones as well, like Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. And I think it's totally, totally worth it. Amazing stuff, and you even have the function of like going double speed if that's too slow for you. Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, you're not going to listen to at double speed, I think. But there's definitely books, especially those older generation kind of books that I was talking about earlier that make you fall asleep if you listen to them at normal speed. Horrible. Anyways, guys, we're already 5 minutes over time, so I'm going to stop it right here. Hopefully you learned something and got something out of it. And next week, or this week rather, on Saturday, I'm going to see you guys hopefully on Patreon. I'm going to do a video about that on, I guess Friday would probably be a good day to release it. On YouTube, which I'm just going to release the trailer, which you've already seen on the Patreon page, to show you guys, to show everyone kind of that we're doing this and that this whole format is going to move over to Patreon. But that's how it's going to be. Guys, take care. Thanks so much for stopping by. Bye-bye. And stay gefährlich. Bye-bye and stay gefährlich. That's like the worst line ever to close a video with. So I'm just going to shut up now. Guys,